Another concern is part of a social media campaign to draw attention to human rights failings in Swaziland. Hashtag Swazi Justice has been focused on securing the release of Bheki Makhubu and Thulani Maseko, who were jailed for writing and publishing articles critical of the country's judiciary. Last week, the Supreme Court in Swaziland finally ordered the release of the human rights lawyer and magazine editor who'd been behind bars for more than a year now. Now, before we are joined via Skype from Washington, D.C. by Jeffrey Smith from the hashtag Swazi Justice campaign, let's take a look at a powerful video that inspired so many from around the world to take action and support free speech and an independent judiciary in Swaziland.
Of my defense is that I'm not in contempt of court,
but that the people of Swaziland are treated with contempt
and discussed in this regard. The people of Swaziland
have a right to determine and shape their destiny. If truth be told,
this trial is about the prosecution and persecution of the aspirations of the people of this land
to determine their own destiny democratically and freely.
When freedom is taken away, it becomes the onerous and supreme duty
of man to reclaim it from the oppressor.
For giving up freedom is tantamount to giving away man's right to dignity.
One can have no dignity without his or her freedom.
Without our freedom, we are a people without a soul.
I am willing to pay the severest penalty, even if it means spending more days or even more years in jail.
It is well with my soul.
I accept the penalty with a clean and clear conscience that I did no wrong. Human rights
are inherent,
inalienable,
indivisible,
and inviolable.
This is clearly not the case.
In Swaziland,
it is our respectful contention
that the issue here is not
and has never been contempt of court.
The issue is the abuse of the courts
to silence
dissenting voices
in order to suppress
aspirations for democratic change.
The people are yearning for freedom,
democracy,
and justice.
Suppressing ideas
never succeeds in making them go away.
even if brutal force,
arrests, and other forms
of suppression
are used to silence dissent.
History shows
that penalties do not deter men and women
when their conscience
is aroused.
The path to freedom
goes through prison.
The triumph
of justice over evil
is inevitable.
Nothing this court can do
will shake me from my commitment
to simple truth.
simple
Justice.
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 Hashtag Swazi Justice. That's been the campaign. Now, representative of that campaign, Jeffrey Smith, got up in the middle of the night in Washington, D.C. I should say a very early good morning to you, Jeffrey. Thank you for joining us and for getting up in the middle of the night.
Of course. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Jeffrey, just give us your initial reaction to the news that Thulani and Bheki would finally be released from jail last week.
Yeah, I think the decision caught a lot of us by surprise. It was certainly most welcome and certainly a wonderful moment for our friends Thulani and Bheki and their families who had suffered for 15 months while their loved ones, and let's not forget their main breadwinners, languished behind bars. I, for one, rest easier knowing that these two amazing men are free, but I also know that there's a lot of work ahead of us, and the fight is definitely not over. The case of Thulani and Bheki that you saw in the video and that we'll be speaking about is unfortunately a mere microcosm and but one example of an ongoing and overall human rights crisis that is currently taking place in Swaziland.
Now, the ruling was a triumph for media on the African continent, but Has Swaziland taken a step forward?
Well, I think it's really important to view the release of Thulani and Becky in a broader context. While on the outside looking in, it may look like a big success for strengthening the rule of law and an independent judiciary in Swaziland. But unfortunately, that's not the case. This decision came about amid what is really a judicial crisis in the country. The Chief Justice has been fired because he broke the cardinal rules of Swazi politics. Swaziland's traditional authorities know that their cause is best served by remaining out of the headlines. A lot of the bad publicity that came about this case and the international headlines that this was really garnering paved the way for the Chief Justice to be fired. But getting rid of him hasn't solved the larger problem. The fact is that a democratic constitution is not in place in Swaziland, and activists and journalists continue to be prosecuted and persecuted merely for exercising their basic and fundamental human rights.
How do you take this forward now? How do you escalate matters now that Becky and Thulani are out of prison?
Well, the Swazi Justice Campaign is and always has been about much more than the case of these two imprisoned human rights defenders. It's about the right of citizens to be given the chance to live under fair laws and to speak without fear of deadly reprisal. For 3 decades, King Mswati III has expertly hidden behind the shadows of other African dictators, most notably in the Southern Africa region. But as democracy marches forward across the continent, his regime is now getting the negative publicity it rightly deserves. People are being victimized for their legitimate political pro-democracy views. So we'll continue raising the profile of Swaziland, as others will, with the aim of advancing and promoting basic human rights. And the important thing is that small, largely off-the-grid dictatorships like Swaziland, the authorities there, abuse human rights because they think, number one, no one is going to notice, and number two, even if people do notice, they won't be compelled to make a lot of noise. But the Swazi Justice Campaign will certainly continue making that noise and continue to raise these many instances of human rights defenders that are being imprisoned merely for exercising the basic human rights that you and I, for instance, take for granted.
Well, Jeffrey, thank you for joining us live from Washington, D.C. It's 3 a.m. there this morning. Jeffrey got up to join us here on Newsroom to tell us about the work behind the scenes of the hashtag Swazi Justice campaign. Now, yeah.